Meet Andre, 42 years old, a man who has arrived at a deeply painful and frightening conclusion about what's happening to him. Andre believes that something has broken inside him, that some essential part of his masculine identity and vitality has been permanently damaged or lost. His sexual desire has completely disappeared, not gradually declined, but seemingly vanished, as if someone flipped a switch and turned it off. His motivation for life in general, not just sexual activity, but work, hobbies, relationships, everything has fallen dramatically, leaving him feeling flat, disengaged, and going through the motions without genuine enthusiasm or drive. And perhaps most painfully, his confidence has eroded along with his desire and motivation, leaving him feeling like a shadow of the man he used to be, questioning his masculinity, his worth, his future, and whether he'll ever feel like himself again. When a man reaches this point where he believes something is fundamentally broken and cannot be fixed, it's a dark, lonely, frightening place characterized by hopelessness and resignation to a diminished existence. But the hero of today's story, and this could be your story if you recognize yourself in Andre's despair, discovers something absolutely liberating that changes everything about how he understands what's been happening to him. Andre learns that he has not lost his libido permanently, that nothing is actually broken or damaged beyond repair, that his sexual capacity and desire have not disappeared forever. Instead, his body, operating with profound biological wisdom, is reacting appropriately and protectively to an environment that has become hostile and unsustainable. His body is responding to a constant inflammatory state created by the accumulated effects of its dietary choices, chronic unmanaged stress, inadequate sleep, sedentary periods, and other lifestyle factors that have pushed his system into a state of chronic emergency. In this inflammatory environment, his body has made the intelligent, adaptive decision to shut down non-essential functions, including sexual desire and reproductive drive, in order to conserve resources for dealing with what it perceives as ongoing threats to survival. His libido hasn't been destroyed, it's been strategically suppressed by a body that's trying desperately to keep him alive and functional under what it perceives as crisis conditions. Hello, and welcome to another video here on the channel. If you're new here, I create evidence-based, practical, hope-filled content about men's health, sexual function, vitality, and reclaiming the life you thought you'd lost. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future videos that could transform your understanding and your outcomes. And if what we discussed today resonates with you, if it gives you hope that what you thought was broken can actually be restored, if it provides a clear framework for understanding and addressing your situation, please leave a like to help other men who are suffering in confusion and despair find this potentially life-changing perspective. Today, we're going to completely reframe how you think about low libido and lost sexual desire. In this video, you're going to understand that the disappearance of your sexual drive is not a punishment, not a permanent loss, not evidence that something is broken, but rather a signal, a warning system, an intelligent adaptive response from a body that's trying to communicate that the internal environment has become unsustainable and needs urgent attention. I'm going to explain exactly how chronic inflammation, the underlying factor driving most modern chronic disease and dysfunction, affects the specific systems necessary for sexual desire, including your circulatory system and blood flow, your nitric oxide production, which is essential for both vascular health and erections, your cellular energy production in the mitochondria, and your brain chemistry and neurotransmitter function. I'm going to show you how these inflammatory effects create a physiological environment where sexual desire literally cannot exist, not because you're broken, but because the biological preconditions for desire are absent. And most importantly, you're going to learn the practical, actionable strategies to reduce inflammation through simple strategic food choices, the specific habits and lifestyle changes that accelerate the recovery of your libido, and how to interpret your body's signals intelligently so you understand what it's trying to tell you rather than feeling victimized by symptoms you don't understand. The fundamental message you need to internalize is this: when you improve your internal environment, when you remove the inflammatory triggers and support your body's healing and optimal function, sexual desire returns naturally and spontaneously without force or effort, not because you've fixed something broken, but because you've recreated the conditions where desire can exist. Let's start by completely reframing how you think about your lost libido. The conventional way most men think about declining sexual desire is as a problem, a failure, a loss, something wrong with them that needs to be fixed or compensated for. This framework creates shame, hopelessness, and a sense of being defective or broken. But there's a completely different way to understand what's happening that's both more accurate biologically and more empowering practically. Your body is an extraordinarily intelligent, self-regulating system that's constantly monitoring your internal and external environment and making strategic decisions about how to allocate limited resources and energy to maximize your survival and well-being.
Healthy endothelial cells produce nitric oxide, a signaling molecule that causes smooth muscle and blood vessel walls to relax and vessels to dilate, allowing increased blood flow wherever it's needed. This is crucial for delivering oxygen and nutrients to tissues, for regulating blood pressure, and critically for sexual function, because erections depend entirely on blood vessels in the penis dilating dramatically to allow blood to rush in and fill the erectile chambers. When your endothelium is chronically inflamed, several catastrophic things happen. Nitric oxide production decreases significantly. The blood vessels become less responsive to signals to dilate. The vessels become stiffer and less flexible. Atherosclerotic plaques begin accumulating, further narrowing the vessels. And overall blood flow throughout your body, including to your brain and sexual organs, becomes compromised. The result is that even if you feel sexual desire, the vascular system cannot respond adequately to create the increased blood flow necessary for arousal and erection. But even before that mechanical problem, the reduced blood flow to your brain impairs the neural circuits involved in generating sexual desire in the first place. Your brain is an extremely metabolically active organ that requires massive amounts of oxygen and glucose delivered by blood flow. When blood flow is chronically impaired by inflammation, brain function suffers across the board, including the motivational and desire circuits. Second, the reduction in nitric oxide production has effects beyond just blood flow. Nitric oxide is a crucial signaling molecule throughout your body, involved in cellular energy production, immune function, neurotransmitter signaling, and numerous other processes. When inflammation reduces nitric oxide availability, all of these functions are impaired. Specifically relevant to libido, nitric oxide in your brain is involved in neurotransmitter regulation, including dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter of motivation, reward, and desire. Reduced nitric oxide means impaired dopamine function, which means reduced motivation and desire for everything, including sex. Third, chronic inflammation severely impairs cellular energy production in your mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside every cell that produce ATP, which is your body's energy currency. Inflammatory molecules directly damage mitochondria and impair their function. The result is that your cells cannot produce energy efficiently, and you experience this as profound fatigue, exhaustion even after sleeping, complete lack of energy and vitality. Sexual desire and activity require energy, both for the psychological arousal and desire itself and for the physical act of sex.
When you're energetically depleted at the cellular level because inflammation has damaged your mitochondria, your body correctly assesses that you don't have the energetic resources to engage in the energy-intensive activity of sexuality, and desire is suppressed accordingly. Fourth, inflammation profoundly affects your brain chemistry and neurotransmitter systems in ways that directly suppress sexual desire. Inflammatory cytokines, the signaling molecules your immune system produces during inflammation, can cross the blood-brain barrier and directly affect brain function. They interfere with the production, release, and reception of key neurotransmitters. Dopamine, as mentioned, is crucial for motivation and desire, and inflammation impairs dopamine function, leaving you feeling unmotivated and anhedonic, unable to feel pleasure or excitement about things that should be rewarding. Serotonin is affected in complex ways that can contribute to depression and anxiety. And inflammation triggers what's called sickness behavior, an evolutionarily adaptive response where your brain makes you want to rest, withdraw, conserve energy, and avoid activities, including sexual activity, when it detects through inflammatory signals that you're sick or injured. Even though there's no actual acute illness, just chronic maladaptive inflammation, your brain responds with the same sickness behavior, including loss of libido. Fifth, inflammation creates a vicious cycle with stress hormones. When you're inflamed, your body produces more cortisol, the primary stress hormone. Elevated cortisol tells your body you're under threat, which triggers more inflammation, which elevates cortisol further. Chronically elevated cortisol directly suppresses testosterone production, interferes with the sensitivity of testosterone receptors, promotes the conversion of testosterone to estrogen, and generally creates a hormonal environment that's catastrophic for male sexual function. So inflammation doesn't just suppress desire directly through the mechanisms already discussed, it also suppresses desire indirectly by disrupting your hormonal balance. When you understand all these mechanisms operating simultaneously in Andre's body, creating a perfect storm of conditions that make sexual desire physiologically impossible, you can see why he feels like something broke. From his subjective experience, his desire did just disappear seemingly suddenly, and nothing he does seems to bring it back. But objectively, what's actually happened is that months or years of accumulated inflammatory insults from diet, stress, poor sleep, and lifestyle have gradually pushed his body past a threshold where it could no longer maintain normal sexual function, and the system shut down. It didn't break, it adapted to intolerable conditions by suppressing a non-essential function. So what's the solution?
Nuts and seeds, including walnuts, almonds, pumpkin seeds, and flax seeds, provide healthy fats, fiber, and anti-inflammatory compounds. Herbs and spices, particularly turmeric with black pepper for absorption, ginger, garlic, cinnamon, and others, have remarkable anti-inflammatory properties and should be incorporated generously. High-quality proteins from grass-fed beef, pastured eggs, wild-caught fish, and organic poultry provide the amino acids necessary for tissue repair and hormone production without the inflammatory effects of factory-farmed animal products. Fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, and kefir support gut health, and a healthy gut microbiome is intimately connected to systemic inflammation, with gut dysbiosis being a major driver of body-wide inflammation. The overall pattern should emphasize whole, unprocessed foods prepared at home where you control ingredients, with processed foods being rare exceptions rather than daily staples. Beyond diet, other lifestyle modifications accelerate inflammation reduction and libido recovery. Sleep must be absolutely prioritized, with 7 to 9 hours nightly in a completely dark, cool, and quiet environment, because sleep deprivation is one of the most powerful inflammatory stimuli, and also when testosterone is primarily produced. Chronic stress must be actively managed through daily practices. Meditation or mindfulness, even 10 to 15 minutes daily, has been shown to significantly reduce inflammatory markers. Breathwork practices that activate the parasympathetic nervous system shift you out of stress mode and into rest and recovery mode. Regular time in nature has documented stress-reducing and anti-inflammatory effects. Therapy or counseling to address sources of psychological stress, and practical changes to reduce stressors, like setting work boundaries, delegating tasks, or making difficult decisions about situations causing chronic stress. Regular exercise is essential, but must be dosed appropriately. Moderate exercise is anti-inflammatory and supports testosterone, mood, energy, and sexual function. But excessive exercise without adequate recovery is highly inflammatory and can worsen the problem. Most men should focus on resistance training 2 to 4 times weekly to build muscle, which supports metabolic health and testosterone, combined with moderate cardiovascular activity like walking, cycling, or swimming for vascular health, with adequate rest days for recovery. If you're significantly overweight, particularly with excessive visceral abdominal fat, losing that fat will dramatically reduce inflammation because fat tissue, especially belly fat, is metabolically active and produces large quantities of inflammatory molecules. Fat loss should be pursued through the dietary changes and exercise already discussed, not through extreme caloric restriction, which is itself a major stressor that can worsen inflammation and suppress testosterone.
Minimize alcohol consumption because alcohol is inflammatory, impairs sleep quality, and directly suppresses testosterone production. Eliminate smoking if applicable, because tobacco is extraordinarily inflammatory and damaging to vascular function. Reduce exposure to endocrine-disrupting chemicals found in plastics, pesticides, personal care products, and household cleaners, because these compounds interfere with hormone function and promote inflammation. Address any chronic infections, including dental infections and others that may be contributing to systemic inflammation. Consider strategic supplementation to support the anti-inflammatory effort. High-dose omega-3 fish oil, providing at least 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams combined EPA and DHA daily. Vitamin D supplementation to achieve blood levels of 40 to 60 nanograms per milliliter, which requires 2,000 to 5,000 IU daily for most men who are deficient. Magnesium, which has anti-inflammatory effects and supports sleep, stress resilience, and testosterone production. Curcumin from turmeric, taken with black pepper for absorption. And possibly others based on individual needs and deficiencies, ideally guided by working with a functional medicine practitioner. And critically, get appropriate testing to assess your inflammatory status objectively and track improvement over time. High-sensitivity C-reactive protein is the most common and accessible inflammatory marker. Fasting insulin and hemoglobin A1C assess metabolic health and insulin resistance, which is intimately connected with inflammation. Complete hormone panel, including total testosterone, free testosterone, SHBG, estradiol, and others, to understand your hormonal profile. And comprehensive metabolic panel to assess liver, kidney, and overall metabolic function. When men implement these comprehensive anti-inflammatory strategies consistently, the recovery of libido and vitality can be dramatic. Let me describe what Andre's journey might look like. Andre learns about inflammation and realizes with clarity that this framework explains everything he's been experiencing. He commits fully to changing his internal environment. He completely overhauls his diet, eliminating all sugar, all refined carbs, all processed foods, all seed oils, replacing them with whole foods, abundant vegetables, fatty fish, berries, nuts, olive oil, and quality proteins. He establishes a non-negotiable sleep schedule, getting 8 hours nightly. He starts a daily meditation practice and weekly therapy to address chronic work stress. He begins a structured exercise program of resistance training 3 times weekly and daily walks with adequate rest. He begins taking high-quality omega-3, vitamin D, and magnesium supplements. He gets comprehensive testing, which reveals elevated C-reactive protein, confirming significant inflammation, elevated fasting insulin, indicating insulin resistance, and low normal testosterone.
The first 2 weeks are difficult as his body adjusts and he experiences cravings and withdrawal from sugar and processed foods, but he persists. By week 3, he notices he's sleeping more deeply and waking more refreshed. His energy during the day has improved noticeably. His mood is beginning to lift. By week 6, something profound shifts. One evening, for the first time in months, he experiences a spontaneous sexual thought, a flicker of desire, an awareness of attraction to his partner. It's subtle, but unmistakable, and profoundly encouraging. Over the following weeks, these moments become more frequent. His morning erections return with regularity. His overall energy and vitality continue improving. By 3 months, his libido has returned to a level he hasn't experienced in years. When he's intimate with his partner, he feels genuinely present, engaged, desirous, not just going through motions. His erections are firm and reliable. His confidence has returned. He feels like himself again. He repeats his testing at 3 months, and the changes are remarkable. His C-reactive protein has dropped from elevated to the low end of normal. His fasting insulin has normalized. His testosterone has increased from low normal into the healthy optimal range, naturally, without hormone replacement. His body composition has improved, with visible loss of belly fat. He realizes that nothing was ever broken. His body was simply reacting appropriately to an intolerable environment. And when he improved that environment, everything returned naturally. This pattern of recovery is achievable for most men experiencing inflammation-driven loss of libido. The timeline varies. Some men notice improvements within weeks, while others take several months. But consistent implementation of anti-inflammatory strategies produces results because you are addressing root causes, not just symptoms. Before we close, let me emphasize several key points. First, your body is not your enemy. It's trying to protect and preserve you, even when its adaptive responses feel like problems. Learn to listen to and work with your body, rather than fighting against it. Second, small changes don't work when inflammation is severe. You need comprehensive, consistent intervention across diet, sleep, stress, and lifestyle. Half measures produce half results. Third, give the process adequate time. Inflammation accumulated over years doesn't resolve in days. Commit to at least 3 to 6 months of consistent effort before evaluating results. Fourth, this is not just about libido. Inflammation is the root of virtually all chronic disease. By addressing it, you're preventing heart disease, diabetes, cancer, dementia, and adding healthy years to your life. And finally, you may need professional support. Working with a functional medicine practitioner, nutritionist, or therapist can provide guidance, accountability, and personalized interventions.
Now, I have a question for you, and I need you to engage honestly in the comments. Do you feel that your body has been trying to tell you something for years, sending you signals through symptoms that you've been ignoring or not understanding? What is your biggest pain today? Is it the lost libido itself? Is it the lost confidence and sense of masculinity? Is it the hopelessness of thinking nothing will work? Is it the confusion of not understanding what's wrong? Please share in the comments, because articulating your pain helps you process it, and your experience might help other men feel less alone. If this video gave you a new framework for understanding your situation, if it replaced hopelessness with hope by showing you that nothing is broken and recovery is possible, if it provided clear, actionable steps you can take starting today, please hit that like button to help other men who are suffering in confusion and despair find this perspective. Share this video with someone who needs it. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because I'll continue creating content that reframes problems as opportunities and provides real solutions. Thank you for watching until the end and for being open to seeing your situation differently. Your willingness to learn and change is what will separate you from men who resign themselves to decline. Now go take action. Clean up that diet today. Prioritize sleep tonight. Start that stress management practice tomorrow. Your libido, your confidence, your vitality are all waiting to return when you create the internal environment that allows them to exist. Nothing is broken. You just need to change the conditions. I believe completely in your ability to do this. See you in the next video.